everyone. We are now live on Facebook and talking to you on Zoom also. So thank you for joining today. I really appreciate you coming on and passing the word around. I'm going to be talking about salt today. And I've been maybe using the word threatening to do this for several times, but salt is one of my over-the-top ideas that I just can't get enough of. And I just think that we are crazy sometimes because we don't understand all the qualities that salt has. So again, I can get kind of carried away on it. And some of you are already on this bandwagon and love salt, but I just thought maybe by showing some more information and putting it on Facebook that more people would appreciate and try to improve their health with one simple change. So that's kind of where we're going today, is talking about salt and some different ideas. So we're going to obviously use maybe the same type idea that we have before, and I'll be doing some, showing some PowerPoints. And then at the end of it, we will open it up and everybody can add what they know or would like to share about salt. So here we go. See if I can share my screen. There's Libby. Hi, Libby. Okay, so I've already kind of introduced it. We are talking about salt and its importance in our lives today, which we have really negated to nothing. And all of you are on here today. You may remember that we have Facebook, Wavwatch Frequency Fanatics, and the website wavwatch.com. And so those can be passed around and shared with others. And don't forget all about the Wavwatch. I think everybody here is a Wavwatch owner, and it is not a medical device. It is a small device that uses sound frequencies to try to balance your body. And we do know that sound frequencies are getting more and more popular and people are paying more attention to them. There's more and more scientific evidence. So there's been evidence for thousands of years that frequencies can be very good for your health. So here's what I think is really interesting, that around 1914, our nutrition changed forever when they introduced refrigerators into the market. We quit using this unrefined sea salt and rock salt even. And of course, we reserved it for our modern highway systems that were starting to kick in gear. So our animals continued to get rock salt and had salt licks, but we did not. We shorted ourselves 80 to 90 minerals. And I don't know how many of you have seen a refrigerator like this. There's lots of pictures of old refrigerators, but around 1914 was when we really threw away our salt. But we forgot this most important statistic, that they had actually studied 200 years before refrigeration started and proved that everyone in the whole world took between 1 and 3 teaspoons of salt daily. And of course, it was mostly in the dried and fermented foods because we didn't have refrigeration then. But this was every country in the whole world. Doesn't that kind of slam you in the face that everybody was smart enough to take 1 to 3 teaspoons of salt? But now in our culture, when we are so smart and we have all of this education and scientific information, we are not paying attention to what everybody in the whole world knew for several hundred years and maybe thousands of years. So a little bit of background. We have now started refining our salt, in about 1914. And all our salt is harvested mechanically from salt mines that is a brine form. And they use mechanical evaporation. And it's often treated with chemicals to remove all the minerals. And we'll be talking about that. There's up to 92 minerals that have been found in some of these salts. And all of these minerals, of course, are siphoned off and they're sold to use in other places. So the minerals that are so good for our health are actually called impurities. So that was one of the ways that things changed. We were just told that our salt had impurities in it. And then, more and more companies started taking these impurities away, but they were actually good enough to sell as minerals for different sources. So they actually treat them with sulfuric acid. They treat them with chlorine. They treat the salts with different ideas. And then the water is taken away with high compression. And then all of the moisture that is left is removed with a fluidized bed dryer. I'm not pretending that I know what that is, but it's dried. Of course it's dried because we get it in a form so that we can shake it, And now we actually have a Academy of Science and Food Chemicals that tells us exactly what food grade salt can be. And they allow up to 2% of that to have anti-caking, free-flowing, or conditioning agents. And so what's in our refined salt is sodium ferrocyanide. Don't you love that word? Cyanide, ammonium citrate, and aluminum silicate. So all of those words, you just see them and you're not really very, enthused about what's in those. We all know that aluminum is dangerous for our brain. Cyanide sounds dangerous just by itself. And wait till you hear what the ammonium citrate is. So just really carefully, this place that I was getting some information from says that none of these products have any positive effect in the body. That's a really nice way to say that, We also have dextrose in our salt. Did you know that? So they put that in so that the iodine will stay in there. So we have an academy that monitors our salt, but they haven't monitored it to my benefit. They haven't monitored it to your benefit. They have monitored it, in my opinion, so that some different companies can really take advantage of our salt and sell it in different ways. So just a couple of ideas about these products that are added to salt, up to 2%. And it sounds like such a small, idea, but it's not. We know that small compounds in our body can make large changes. So on the blue section on here, the aluminum silicate is a mineral, and it's composed of aluminum, oxygen, and silicon. And guess what this is used for? Corrosion preventative coatings. Probably there's quite a few other things. But, we all know aluminum cannot be that good. Now, another word that was used is ferrocyanide. And they're saying that there is no problem with this because it's so tightly bound to an iron atom, it just cannot be released in the body. And even if it were to be released, even if they were wrong about it, it's way too small, so it wouldn't cause any harm. Don't you think that needs updated? We know more and more size doesn't matter. There's so many small things in the trillions and trillions of cells we have that can cause a problem. So this particular one, of course, is sodium, iron, and cyanide. And then the ammonium citrate really bothered me. All of them bothered me, but this one is from PubChem. And it says that the primary hazard of ammonium citrate is a threat to the environment. Immediate steps should be taken to limit its spread to the environment. It's used in pharmaceuticals and in chemical analysis. Oh, it's used in salt. They forgot to mention that. But here we go again. It's such a big threat to the environment. We should do something about it, but it's okay in our bodies. Raise your hands if that just really sounds unbelievable. That's how we have been manipulated, That's unbelievable. So here's what I think we ought to know about and be passing around. It's the easiest thing that we can do to help others improve their health. And I don't know if I want to make this statement because I'm a Wavwatch lover, obviously, but salt is probably one of the easiest and the cheapest things that you could do to help people improve their health. So the kinds that are considered to be best are the Redmond's real salt, the Himalayan pink salt, and the Celtic sea salt. So they work better than any of the other salts out there. There's more information on them, more studies. I'm not saying that there might not be some other kinds of salt, but they should not be white. Usually if a salt is white, it's your clue that something has changed in it, that they've refined it in some way. So I think one of the most obvious things is if it is a different color, it has different minerals in it. That's your clue right there. Why haven't we been taught that? That's why ancient cultures, there are images of them, I guess maybe drawings or renderings, showing them floating up and down the rivers, with barges or with even canoes full of different kinds of salt that was different colored. So they were trading salt from around the world because they knew the value of these different minerals. So the Celtic sea salt is light gray in color. I don't know, I hope some of you have seen that. It really is gray, and it has the natural clay in the mud. So that's what that is from. And so it's from the salt flats, and it's very light in color. Usually it's from France or Europe, that kind of an idea. The Himalayan sea salt is pink, which is from the iron oxide. And it's usually mined from Pakistan, from down deep in the ground, from a deep shaft. And there could be some variations. And now there's a few people saying that they've seen warnings that some of the Himalayan salt is not pure and where it's supposed to be coming from. So of course, we're being used all the time. Now that salt has really caught on, there are some fake ideas out there. So please be careful and get your salt from a reputable place, like a health food store, as much as you can. Real salt, which comes from Redmond, Utah, was part of an inland sea, and it's been sealed deep underground for X amount of years. I don't know if I want to say millions, but they know it's been underground for many, many thousands of years. So each of these types of salt, plus more, like I've been to Hawaii and they have a red salt, and they say some of the red is from the algae, some different ideas there. So as long as you have a good salt that does have some different color variations, there could be some positive ideas from using that salt. And we'll talk about actually muscle testing again in just a few minutes so that you can tell which type of salt is best for you. I wanted to see if I could just remind you, if you haven't heard of this is an older site, but Longevity was started by Dr. Joe Wallach. And I have just been fascinated by him. And if you haven't heard his speech or his, you can listen to it. You can get a CD of it. It's on a lot of different places, I believe, but Dead Doctors Don't Lie is mostly the speech or the talk that he has been known for the best. And it's simply wonderful. Now, he phrases it a little bit different, but I always like to tell my clients very simplistically, your body can't do anything without minerals. And he's got it really down to the nitty gritty. He says, either as a major part of the function or as a catalytic cofactor, RNA, the DNA, subcellular, digestive enzyme, and the utilization of vitamins. That's a mouthful. I just try to say your body doesn't work without minerals. They kick off the enzymes, they kick off the vitamins, they kick off the RNA, DNA. He's got it very scientific. It's the same thing. We have to know that the catalyst for everything in our body is minerals. And we've known this for 10,000 years. But today, we have been told that what we need for optimal health is the 4 food groups pharmaceuticals, radiation, surgery, and organ transplants. I love the way he said that. And I can read that off because that's a quote from him. But this is the best quote. Simply said, minerals are the currency of life. Don't you like that now when we're talking about all these currency ideas and what you should do for maintaining your financial status? You know, we talk about currencies all the time, but really the currency for life is minerals. We have to be having these minerals in our system. Now, to go right along with this, I love it when a plan falls in place, you know. So another person who's talked about salt a lot and who has written a book about it is Dr. David Brownstein, and it's Salt Your Way to Health. And the first thing he says, salt bars were used as currency for thousands of years. Now, just sink that in. Just, you know, I knew they traded in salt. I knew they paid wages in salt. They collected taxes in salt. Even the word salary is the Latin word for salt. But I guess until I did this research, I hadn't seen that salt bars were used. And so Joe Wallach is saying that minerals are the currency of life. And Dr. David Brownstein is saying that salt bars were used as currencies for thousands of years. So what are we doing? Aren't we throwing our money away? Aren't we putting it on the highway? That's what I say all the time. We take better care of our highways than we do our bodies. So salt can just be one of the most important things to share with anybody. And I have a lot of small little salt shakers. I have some of the bags like this. And, you know, we actually travel with a bag in our car. We travel with, you know, the smaller salt shakers. We go into a restaurant, we get out our real salt. It's so important. And sometimes people say, what are you doing? It's like, well, I'm not going to eat that salt with aluminum in it. You know, I need to protect my brain. So lots of different ideas there. Another idea that I hadn't seen before is that an important aspect of symbolism in the Da Vinci paintings of the Last Supper is Judas overturning the salt. So I don't know if anybody has picked up on that. I certainly hadn't. So, you know, later or even right now, if you want to, you know, make a comment about it, is that anything that anybody's noticed? And what would you make of that idea? Judas is overturning the salt. Wow, that made me think. So we have thrown all of our common sense away because we have decided that salt is not any good for us. So what are we missing out on? I guess I jumped a little bit on this salt. One more idea here. Before the 1920s, iodine deficiency was common in the Great Lakes, the Appalachians, and the Northwestern United States. So then, after they changed our salt around, studies were done saying, oh, we needed to add iodine to our salt. And they did do that. They prevented some goiters. But remember, they'd already taken all the minerals out of our salt that was available in the 1920s because it started about 1914. So then all these other health problems just increased exponentially, but they didn't think about them being related to the salt. So they added an iodized salt, and Morton's would be the most popular that I've seen. I was raised with iodized, you know, salt. And I guess I actually picked an article that says iodized sea salt, you know. And so they're not saying all salt comes from the sea. That's something that they have glommed onto just recently. You know, yes, salt does come from the sea, but has it been refined? That's the word that we want to know. So they've just changed some wording on us, and they're now saying everything is sea salt. Well, it is. They're not lying on that. They just haven't told you that it's refined versus unrefined. Now, on the left-hand side, I just have a picture of iodine. Iodine is really not an unrefined sea salt. It had to be taken separately. So people knew this for thousands of years. They were taking it in different ways. They were doing kelp. They were doing different things. And then over 180 years ago, Lugol's iodine was developed, and it was the most popular supplement at the turn of the century. So people were using more iodine. They were using the regular, quote unquote, unrefined sea salt. And then again, refrigeration started, and all of this went away. And the only thing that they could do was put a synthetic iodine into our salt to cover it all, quote unquote. Now, lots of studies have been done about that, and I didn't go into great detail about it when they added iodine to the salt, because mostly we want to go over some of the salt ideas today. It's just a big topic. Everything is a big topic, you know. So this again is kind of phrasing it a different way how important these micronutrients and the minerals are. They don't work by themselves. We have to have minerals in combination. And I really hesitate when somebody says, oh, yeah, I take XYZ mineral. I have a bottle of this mineral. But wait, what about the other 80 some minerals? Are you taking them? No. Do I need to? Yes. Everything works in a combination. So sometimes they need to partner together. Sometimes they work symbiotically. They keep each other in check. They balance each other out. Sometimes when they compete, they actually cancel each other out. So if you have too much of one mineral, it might negate the other mineral. And every mineral is important. There is a reason why we have the amount of minerals that we do in our system. So this is Morton salt, basically. And when you go there, you can see how much of the Morton salt website is all about chemicals. Of course, they do have some food suggestions for salt, but mostly they are, I'm trying to say this very carefully, they are breaking down the salt and taking all the minerals out of it and selling it to industrial purposes, selling it for industrial purposes. And again, they're leaving us a salt that is pretty much sodium with aluminum, the other minerals that I talked about, or the other ideas that I talked about. So chemicals. So I am very upset that my whole life, that my mother, who tried so hard to do everything that she was told by, quote unquote, the establishment, knew that we needed iodized salt. That's what we were told. So since the 1920s, no one has had all the minerals that we should have had. And it just gets worse each generation, less and less minerals. And then as women have children who haven't had these minerals when they were growing up, their children have more trouble. And then when those children have babies, there are more troubles, and the list goes on and on. So we have really hurt our society just with salt, just with the subtraction of these. Now, this may be a little harder for you to see, but I talk about a system that I work with a lot of times, and it's called a biomeridian or an MSA. And I just wanted to show you a screen on it. It basically says antidotes for heavy metals on the left-hand side. I don't know if you can see that. The bars is in gray. And then on the right side, I just took one screen, but I have 4 or 5 screens of this, and it shows exactly which mineral will take out which heavy metal or balance it or work with it. So you can see that aluminum is the first one. And you think, oh, wait a minute, you told us not to have aluminum. Yes, but there's different forms of it. So when we have aluminum as it comes out of a natural salt, that's quite a bit different from when they've refined it and done something with it and, you know, made it into different forms. So even arsenic, and you're going, why would I have arsenic? But in salt, it is natural in very minute amounts. So again, it's in a different form, and it has, it will pull out thorium. So that's a different heavy metal. And I can't just sit here and rattle off all of the problems with thorium. You know, there's so many of them. But what I'm telling you is that salts will balance out heavy metals. And here's my proof of it. Here's a chart. So boron is used for Iron, cadmium, that doesn't sound like a good thing. That's something that we use in our teeth. Yes, it is. They have taken that particular idea, and when they process it and do something different to it, all of a sudden it becomes very dangerous for us in our mouth. But in the salt feature, it actually cleans out another mineral, excuse me, another heavy metal, or balances it or uses it constructively. So don't forget that our body is very, very smart, and it does a lot of things. So you'll also see that down towards the bottom, there's fluoride. So, we have that naturally in salt, but it doesn't mean that when they put it in our food supply or our toothpaste in the form that they put it in, that it's a good form. So again, this is very interesting that these are antidotes for heavy metals. So what have we done for the last, over 120 years, since the 1920s? We have had salt taken out of our system, and our natural ability to remove heavy metals has been taken away from us because we don't have any of these correct minerals or trace minerals or anything that will work with us to clean our body out. So here's another list. This is why, this just goes on. And I really didn't take the time to explain each one of these. I think we can all, most of us know some of this idea, but even salt stabilizes an irregular heartbeat and regulates blood pressure when you drink plenty of water. And of course, that's the main thing that our medical doctors want us to know otherwise or think otherwise. So of course, if you have blood pressure problems, the first thing you are to do is to get off of salt. And in my opinion, that would be correct if it is white salt. But what you want to go on to is a unrefined sea salt that would really do some good for your system. Now, I think I've told this story before, but just to repeat so that maybe some different people can hear it. But I had a young man whose parents came from quite a way across Kansas to see me. And then he started coming from Leavenworth. And then his family came also, his wife and his children. And then he was in the service. And he was moved on to Washington, D.C. He got a big job promotion and he went to Washington, D.C. And he started having trouble with his blood pressure out there. So he had a very important mission that he wanted to go on. And he was having trouble with blood pressure, so they wouldn't let him. So he doctored for 6 months doing what they told him to and couldn't get any results. So finally, he came, back to see me in Kansas City. And guess what my computer system told us? That he was short of minerals. So all we did to regulate his blood pressure was to muscle test the correct kind of salt that he needed and the amount of salt that he needed. And guess what? His blood pressure stabilized. Now, just for fun, the mission he got to go on was so important. He went with Trump to South Korea in 2017. So when I tell that story, my heart just flutters. Salt allowed him to do that mission. So he carries bags of salt with him and educates his soldiers or people down the line and tells them all about salt. So please do not be afraid of this. And I've got a little bit more information later, but that's one of the really big things. They have told us to stay away from salt, which is exactly, in my opinion, backwards. We can also extract acids from the cells, particularly the brain cells, with salt. It balances our blood sugar. I don't know whether just to read this or let you keep reading it. Maybe you want to take a picture of it. I don't know, but this will be on the Wavwatch Frequency Fanatics, obviously, so that you can check again if you need. It actually helps us to generate hydroelectric energy. This is salt. This is unrefined sea salt with all of these minerals working together. We have to have it for absorption of nutrients through the intestinal tract. It helps us to clear the lungs of mucus. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's totally amazing. It clears up congestion in the sinuses. It's a natural antihistamine. It can prevent muscle cramps. And my husband used to have a lot of muscle cramps. And, basically he learned the kind of salt that he needed. And sometimes he could literally have a muscle cramp as he was doing, some heavy work. And he could just, put some in his hand and lick it. And within seconds, that muscle cramp would go away. And I have used salt for years for people with muscle cramps or even restless leg syndrome. Both of those ideas work very well. So if saliva is flowing out of the mouth during sleep, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're drooling, that's a salt deficiency. Now, here's one that I think is so important. How many of us women have been told that we have osteoporosis or osteopenia, and we need to take a prescription drug? All we need to do is change to a different kind of salt. We need to have the salt that has all of the minerals in it. Our bones are just not calcium. They're made up of a conflagration. So many types of minerals make up our bones. And they have just thrown that to the winds and told us we need calcium. So we do need to change our minerals just for our bones. And we're not done yet. This is just one page. So here's a couple of other ideas on what salt can do for us. And I guess I maybe jumped here, but I do want to still introduce this as a way when we were talking about the blood pressure. So Dr. Brownstein actually provides references showing that low salt does not lower blood pressure. This is the white salt, the refined salt. One of the studies reviewed 56 different trials and found there was no effect on blood pressure. But another study showed a 430% increase in heart attacks in groups with the lowest salt intake. So if you need to tell somebody that they need salt and their blood pressure and all of this mess that's going on, Dr. Brownstein is really a good source for that. And then he also goes on to say that unrefined salt has the ability to lower cholesterol. Okay, so isn't that interesting? So there are even a few studies that show that unrefined sea salt, when it was used to treat high blood pressure, there was an impressive 45% decline in people. And the soldier that I just mentioned was one of those. So again, a little bit more information about that very first idea on the salt that I mentioned up here. It helps regulate blood pressure and heartbeat. So it just goes on and on. We're just kicking in gear. So a few other ideas. So salt regulates our sleep. It's a natural hypnotic. So if you're having some trouble sleeping, I know many people are using the Wavwatch, but I always take my salt at night before I go to bed. So I take about a teaspoon in a little bit of water and just sip it down. I'm taking my salt shot. That's the way I say it. It's my salt shot. So that's a good way to do it. You may take it at other times during the day, but a regulation at night is very helpful. It also helps prevent gout and gouty arthritis. So there you go. There's another idea. How many of us are having trouble with that? Nobody's going to complain about sexuality and libido if you've got enough salt with enough minerals. So add that into your routine. You can prevent varicose veins and spider veins on the legs and the thighs. So I'm not sure that I can say any of these 100% of the time, but some people definitely have seen a change in that with just salt. Obviously, I've mentioned before, it supplies the body with over 80 essential minerals, and sometimes they're saying up to 92. So different salts, different mineral combinations, different areas of the world that they are mined could have some different minerals in them. So a couple other things I found, salt on the tongue helps with a dry cough. And see, we use so many of these things when we were growing up. I remember my mom telling me about salt, but it didn't really work. They'd already changed the salt over. I didn't see that, but she had remembered from her great grandmother probably, or her grandmother or whoever, telling her to use salt. It worked when it was the unrefined sea salt, but when I did it, in the 60s, it didn't seem to work. And so you kind of mark it off and you don't think that salt will do anything. And it didn't, because it was the white salt. Don't forget, it's for our nerve cells communication from the day we're born, or even when we're conceived until death. So it's huge, huge, huge. And I think I put that in there twice. I didn't realize I did, but that's one of the most important things, brain health. And another idea that I found is reducing a double chin. So if you see somebody that has a double chin, it really is a sign that they have a water and a salt mineral shortage. So this comes from water, the RX for a healthier, pain-free life. So those were some ideas. Now it just goes on, but we are about done. These are some other fun things that I learned that I shared with people over the years. Of course, we take salt baths, but we don't really think about it, that we could use it more specifically. So it helps with our skin. It helps to flush toxins out of the body when we're doing that. And don't forget that it will help with psoriasis. So they're even saying you could rub some salt, or when you're taking a bath, actually do a little bit more in-depth idea with the salt and use that for your skin. I think it's very important that we realize that unrefined sea salt does have fluoride or fluorine in it. And so even if you rinse with a mouthwash of salt water, it helps to clean up our mouth and gives us some of that natural fluoride. Now, I know I was raised on the Eastern Plains of Colorado, and as far as I know, my brothers and sisters still have, fairly good teeth, for quite a while. But we were told that area out there had a lot of natural fluoride in the water, and people didn't tend to have as many problems with their dental health. I can't say that it's been 100% as we've, aged, but definitely when we were teenagers, we did not have any dental problems. Whereas today, so many young people have dental problems at an early age. So things have changed. Our minerals have changed. Our health has changed. Now, another one I like to point out is that lymph nodes will open and flush toxins better with salt. And that kind of goes along with that idea that certain minerals connect with certain heavy metals, and they're going to be flushing out of your system through the lymph nodes. I could not find this, but I know I learned this somewhere years ago. But we don't have adequate salt today, and all the minerals that are connected with it. And we have a huge problem with gluten intolerance. So many children today who have never had all these minerals. Obviously, they've only had maybe the white salt, whatever the brand is, doesn't have any minerals in it. That's all they've had their whole life, and they cannot eat gluten. Well, guess what? Adequate salt lowers the pH of the stomach acid, and it will break down proteins better, allowing for less problems with gluten. Now, that phrase there kind of struck me because, it helps us to digest proteins better and break them down. And I have seen that time and time again in my office when somebody gets on a little bit better salt regimen and they do take it, they get more minerals in their body. They are able to have to eat a few more things and have less allergies. Now, what popped in my mind just now was the proteins, that our stomach will digest proteins better. I have no idea if that has anything to do with some of the proteins that we are battling in our system today that could come from different sources. But we definitely want to have that ability to break down proteins of all kinds. And of course, I'm thinking of the spike protein. I do not have any information on that. Now, to wrap this up just a little bit, I live close to a town called Excelsior Springs, Missouri. And I don't know how many of you have heard of it, but I am just fascinated by it. It actually had the largest conglomeration of mineral water springs in the whole world, is what they were saying. Now, it had 46 mineral water springs and 5 different varieties of waters, each with a different unique healing property. And this was all because of different minerals. So again, that's what I was trying to tell you, that it goes hand in hand. Different minerals do different things in our body. And they had recognized this. So Excelsior Springs was a haven for people. They would go around the turn of the century until about the 1960s, I think is the idea. And they would soak in these different mineral hot tubs. They had built up huge spas and medical systems, sanitariums, and it was a huge business in this town, working with different minerals that just came up naturally from the earth. Well, guess what? Somebody came and wrote an article that was in, I believe it was Time magazine. It was on the cover, and they called it dubious claims that were being made. And so all of a sudden, all of these mineral springs were shut down. They were capped. So this is an example of one over here, this beautiful fall picture. That was a mineral spring where people could go for free and get a different kind of mineral water if they thought it was healing them. Now, again, closed up, but they had the world's largest variety of natural mineral springs. Now, I got this quote. I thought this would be funny. It was funny for me. It's from a beer brewing company, and it's called Dubious Claims Brewing Company. And they said, forget about the water, just come have our beer. That's their slogan. Forget about the water, just come have a beer. So I just thought it was very interesting. So now we are throwing away more natural ideas that were given to us through God's grace and shutting them off and saying, hey, we know more than somebody else does. It's not true. God gave us all of these minerals and we need to take advantage of them. So a couple more ideas. We are almost done. I hope I'm not too long here because I know some of you know so much of this information, but I'm just trying to make sure that more people get this information out. So I've already taught you the stand and sway muscle test, and I'm kind of trying to show it here. But basically, you can take any kind of salt that you want and see if your body likes it. So remember, all you have to do is stand with the salt. I should have probably had it down just a little bit more in that picture. I say gut level. So put your salt at gut level, and it doesn't matter what kind of a container it's in, it really doesn't. And just kind of relax a little bit and say to yourself, if this is good for me, I will lean forward. Now, if your body goes backwards by default, that means it's not the kind of salt that you need. But if it goes forward, then it is the kind of salt that you need. So in my office with probably about 6,000 people, I've tested and seen a certain idea here that I thought was worth sharing with you. So women who are having a cycle still and childbearing age normally muscle test for the Himalayan salt because of the iron. Doesn't that make sense? So I've seen that time and time again. So women who are not cycling past childbearing age normally test for this real salt. I mean, I've seen it thousands of times. So we can go just a little bit deeper. And if you are not into muscle testing, just think of the age that you are or the person that you're trying to help. And that would be the kind of salt that probably would be best for them. Now, of course, the guys, maybe, I don't want to say they're more complicated because women, we know we're more complicated than the men. But for some reason, they'll usually test for the Redmonds or the Celtic sea salt. Okay, so they have a couple of possibilities. But again, it pretty much is cut and dried with women, the age they are, what they do need. So now the next step is to try to figure out how much salt you need. And I've kind of mentioned before that it's 1 to 3 teaspoons. So the next thing that you could do after you figure out what kind of salt your body likes the most, then the next thing you say is, do I need a teaspoon of salt every day? So your body will go forward or it will go backwards, and it will tell you. Now, that may not be the be all end all, because you might have to say, oh, I went forward with the 1. Now, does that mean I need a teaspoon and a half a day? So, kind of be real careful. Go up and just say, does my body need a teaspoon and a half a day? If you go forward, that's a yes. If you go backwards, that's a no. And you stop at the 1. But it doesn't hurt to ask just a couple more questions. Now, don't forget that you can ask that very same thing with drops. There might be some mineral drops. You can say, do I need 30 drops a day? This happens to be just an example of iodine. And you can say the same thing. Do I need 10 drops of iodine? Do I need 20 drops? If it's pill versions, you can get the Himalayan sea salt in a pill version, and you can test and say, do I need 1 pill a day? Do I need 2 pills a day? So you do need to get the right amount in. I'm going to pick on the men again. Some of the men that I have in my office do not want the muscle testing to work. And they're going to plant themselves, their feet far apart. And they are so surprised when they ask their body what kind of salt they need, that it basically jerks forward. It really jerks them, because they've tried to plant themselves. And then they start laughing and they say, oh my gosh, I was just holding so firm. I didn't want my body to move, and they just admitted it right away. And I said, but it did, it works, So then they were really relaxed, and they could ask their body whether they needed a teaspoon to 3 teaspoons. And guess what? Big athletic guys always need 3 teaspoons of salt almost every day. So, just think how much we have shorted ourselves with not taking the right kind of salt. So very, very important. And I see somebody raise their hand here. I'll see if I can get to it in just a minute. I think we are just about done. Oh, I found 2 more things to share with you. I didn't know that they had a sea salt spray for your hair. So it could be helpful for hair loss. I haven't used that. This was a new idea to me, both of these ideas here. And so there is a recipe. You can find that, and it's just salt and water. And then you're going to spray it into your hair. And it says it circulates, helps the circulation in your scalp. And then also a new idea to me that I haven't tried yet. I wish I would have seen this, but they're saying basically that you can put salt water, just a small portion of it underneath your eyes for the puffiness. And so you're paying close attention underneath your eyes, and you let it sit in place for several minutes before you rinse it off. So I'll maybe be updating you, see if I think it helps me, but somebody else might want to try that, because that was definitely an idea that I had missed. I hadn't seen that one. I don't know if some of you have seen salt caves yet. So they have figured out, literally hundreds of years ago, that miners who worked in salt caves did not have the congestion problems and the sinuses and the allergies and things like that miners had who were working in different kinds of caves. So they actually have buildings now that they've made, and they put, walls of salt, and you can go in and just, be in a blissful state, is the way they say it, of relaxation while you're breathing in salt in the air. So I have been to a salt cave in the Kansas City area that was man-made, but they do have actual natural salt caves that you can go to if you see them in your area. So the one in my area was probably using something like this machine on the right, and it was grinding up really small micro-sized particles, which, they're in the air, and then you're breathing them in. And so what they're saying is salt therapy can be helpful for asthma, allergies, COPD, emphysema, and the list goes on and on. Things that we've kind of already talked about. So if you want a fun excursion sometime, you might try a salt cave or a salt, whatever the business is called, something that has set up the ability to breathe in salt in micro-sized particles. So I think that's about it for today. And I just want to stop and open this up and let anybody make any suggestions or ideas that they would like to. And somebody asked a question there. I guess I'm still missing it, but any comments? Any comments? Are you as enthusiastic about salt as I am? Oh, and I forgot, when I started using salt about 7 years ago, my hairdresser actually told me that my gray had gone away, and she's looking down at my hair and she's saying, "What'd you do to your hair?" And I go, "I don't know. I just started taking more salt, and I had flipped and started taking the teaspoon a day. And I was taking the Redmond sea salt. And again, my hairdresser said my gray went away. So that might be an idea. And that's another reason I'm going to try spraying my hair with sea salt sometimes. All right. Yes, Carolyn.
I've my whole life been extremely itchy, and I just met someone else who's saying the same thing, a lady in my neighborhood. Is it possible? I just see you just had skin irritation. Are you familiar, or in your experience, with itchy skin maybe being a result of too low a salt?
Yep.
Wow.
And then another idea would be to make sure you're cleaning your liver, because the liver, if it's not clean up enough, it's going to store some of those toxins in the skin. So give it some help internally and externally. Yep. Yes. And then somebody asked if I could share how you muscle test. I tried to kind of show you. I've got those pictures. Really, all you have to do is stand. I don't know if I can show here very easily. So I'm taking a kind of salt that I want to see if my body will like. And all I have to do is say, if my body needs this salt, I'll lean forward. And that was my natural reaction. Okay. Now, if I try the Celtic salt, I hope everybody can see this. I can see it on my screen. So the Celtic salt, I'm trying a different kind. If my body needs this salt, I'll lean forward.
Hey, Linda, that was me who asked the question. And it was really, can you muscle test before you buy the product?
Yes.
So, yeah. Am I just standing up and asking the question without holding it?
Well, if you're in a store, you don't even have to say that question aloud. I just said it aloud so that you could hear it. But in a store, you just grab the package and just stand right there and test it. Now, you could also put your hand, like if it's a loaf of bread, just lay your hand on the bread. Is this good for me? And you'll get a yes or a no, So anything like that, yes. Now, it is a little bit harder. You may need to gain some more confidence, but some people do order supplements on the internet, and they will do a muscle testing a little bit differently and, ask if they, if their body needs that supplement before they order it. They're not touching it. So that's kind of, a little bit higher up if you're just learning. But it's definitely possible. There are all kinds of people who their business is to do testing, muscle testing, and work with people long distance. And they are telling them what they might be allergic to or what their problem is simply through muscle testing long distance. So is that what you were asking?
Exactly, because I order most of my stuff online because I don't think I've been in a grocery store for many months.
I
So
see.
I
There
just
you go.
wanted to, you can just ask that question.
Yes, you
and
can just say.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't get the idea that you weren't going to be able to touch it. Yeah. So anyway, kind of gives you an idea there. And don't forget, when people are doing the stand and sway muscle testing, some of them are just little tiny tippers. I'm a tip-toer, and then other people are steppers. I literally have to move out of the way or they'll step on me when they test and learn muscle testing. So it's really amazing. If you'll test 5 or 6 things, or maybe even a few more to practice it, then you'll know how your body usually responds. And you'll get that feel of that. And then when you go to the grocery store where you can touch it, you can do it that way. Now, Betsy, you had another question, maybe if you order that product and you don't muscle test for it, hopefully you would have a chance to send it back, that kind of thing. If you already have the product open, you're not going to be able to do that, but it doesn't mean it's a bad product. It might mean that your body doesn't need it at this point in time. So set it on the shelf, and maybe 2 weeks down the line, you'll muscle test it and your body does want it. So some different ways to sort and sift through products that you have.
Linda, what was the name, what was the brand of iodine that you had recommended that worked good for you?
Lugol's is the oldest kind. It's been around for about 180 years. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And again, I mean, there's a huge story on iodine. I'll probably have to cover that sometime, but they basically told us it was like cry wolf. And seriously, the people who did the experiment on iodine, the last name was Wolf. It was the Wolf Shangri. Don't quote me on that, but it was called the Wolf study. And they were saying that iodine was bad for us, and then it was taken out of our diet. So it was, one of those things of cry wolf, and it was not right. So iodine was taken out of our diet too. So every mineral was pretty much removed. Gee, does that sound like something that we would be saying today in different words? Don't want to get myself in trouble here, but we've been manipulated for many years with our diet. And yes, I do host these calls every week. So there's about 50 some calls that are recorded on wavwatch.com by category. So you can go back and check those to see if there's a category that you want some basic information on. All right. Any other ideas or comments on salt? I hope you are like me and you're just as fascinated by all the things that salt can do with 80 to 90 minerals in it.
Just a comment, and I know I speak a lot.
Pardon?
I know I ask lots of questions, but I'm sure you must know, but just in case you don't, just the nutritional aspect of what you were doing is so absolutely amazing. Just having the Wavwatch isn't enough. You're doing far more, and you are so appreciated. And I, as you know, send off your information to my network because most of them are elderly and thoroughly not comfortable with perusing through everything. So we just appreciate you and wanted you to know that. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Carolyn. Thank you. Well, like I said, I just learned about the circles under the eyes with salt. So I learn something every time that I want to try, so it's perfect to learn. Well, I hope all of you are going to make sure that you have the right kind of salt, because again, if you are my age, like 70, and you are using the wrong kind of salt, if I would be using this salt, I wouldn't be helping myself. My body told me no on this salt. It told me yes on this salt. So make sure you're using the right kind of salt. That's almost as important as not using the white salt that has all the minerals removed from it. Okay. And don't forget how toxic those minerals are. So we got to be looking and giving ourselves the ability to pull out some toxins and all the other things that salt and all its minerals can do. Okay.
Linda,
Yes.
I have a question that kind of goes back to last week's topic on Parkinson's, when you were
Yes.
talking about trichloroethylene. Is there any way to find the frequency for that and put that on the watch to?
I have looked, but it is it's a chemical. So
Right.
I do have several detoxifiers for chemicals. And
Okay.
that's about all I could do. Yeah. I have found a frequency for glyphosate. I can't even say it sometimes. Glyphosate. There we go. That I will put maybe on a newer edition if I update them. I have found that one separately, but that's the only one. But yeah, that was pretty upsetting on that tricol. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
in so
it is-
many things.
Mhm. Yeah, and with the
Thank you.
prevalence of Parkinson's going up and up and up, I am looking for it, but I haven't found it yet. So
Thanks.
all right, I suppose we'll call it a day. Thank you for joining, ladies. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye. And gents, ladies and gents, thank you for coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Linda. Love you.
Thanks.